I've been involved in a lot of purchases and sales of business. And as I was telling Carl before I came up, there are a lot of moving parts in the sale of a business. And if you miss one of them, you can really be very unhappy. And I've seen it happen. I've been doing this a long time. I started my consulting career in 1999. So I've got a few stories to tell. Actually, my very first consulting customer was the guy that invented the stress ball. Everybody know what the stress ball is? Yeah, he was my first customer. And I met him after he invented it. He had a promotional products company. It was doing $4.5 million a year. And the guy was a marketing genius. And he found this material on a trip to China that was refuse. It was the byproduct of an industrial process that they threw away. And he brought back a few pieces and he said to his management team, "What do you think? Feel this stuff." And he said, "We can do something with this, right?" And they thought he was nuts. So he came up with this idea of the stress ball, and his company went from $4.5 million in revenue to $50 million a year in 3 years. Sounds good, right? It was a disaster. The wheels were coming off this business when I got there. We had a mutual acquaintance, and he asked me to come in and fix it, which I did. Very interesting experience. So you got to have a lot of tools in the toolbox. Anybody here a Formula One fan? Formula One racing? Yeah, a few of you. Anybody see the Italian Grand Prix a few months ago? Formula One Grand Prix in Italy? The races are won and lost in the pits. They race for hours and hours and hours. And they'll come in, the Ferrari will come into the pits, and they need all the tires changed, they need the suspension adjusted, they need the car filled with fuel and the windshield wiped and the driver hydrated, and they do it in 7.1 seconds. Actually, they do it in less than that now. And that race was won, Ferrari won it by 0.8 of 1 second over Mercedes. So you need a lot of tools. You need to know how to use them and how to use them the correct way and when to use them. That's what this is all about. The really sad part about this, and I don't know if you've seen this statistic, I was stunned when I learned this. More than 80% of businesses that are listed with business brokers don't sell. And I like to say, if you don't think business owners don't know how to run a business, what do you think they know about selling one? And they usually don't even think about selling a business until they're ready to sell the business. And by then, it's way too late because you don't have time to prepare the things that a buyer's going to look for because, they don't know what they don't know about this. And hopefully you'll leave today and know that there's a lot of, as I said, a lot of moving parts in this thing. And the other thing is that they're very emotionally involved with their businesses, and you can't blame them. They spent 20, 30 years, of their lives sacrificing and struggling and dealing with the stress. And they have an emotional attachment. This is their baby. I'll tell you a true story. Years ago, I used to belong to this organization called the CEO Club of America. I think the successor now is Vistage. But this was a group of presidents of companies, and I was one, that used to meet monthly and talk about issues in their business and get hosted at one company and so forth. And we had this one woman in the group. This is back in the late 90s. She had gotten laid off from a pharmaceutical company and got back up on her feet, dusted herself off, and started this company that would do, when you certify a drug, the FDA they test everything, right? They test the manufacturing process, the clinical trials, all this stuff. And so she came up with the idea of going to these pharmaceutical companies and doing a pre-test. Since she knew all the procedures very well, she could show them where any problems might surface before the FDA got in there. So they didn't have to go back to the back of the line and waste time and money. And she built a very successful business. She was doing $6 million a year in revenue, very profitable in a few years. And one day she comes to the meeting and she says, she's very down in the dumps. And I said, "What's the matter, Carol?" She said, "I got approached by this acquisition group. They're doing an industry roll-up and they want to buy my company." I said, "Great." I said, "How much are they offering you?" She said, "One-time sales, $6 million. And she'd only been running the company for 3 years. I said, "What's the problem?" She said, "Well, they're going to give me a seat on the board, but I know they're going to come in there and they're going to change things. And, I'm sure I'm not going to like a lot of the things that they do. They won't do it the way I did it." And I said, Carol, listen, I think I have a solution for you. I said, when you get the $6 million, take $250,000 and set it aside for psychotherapy.